Now, I started with Lightsmith and ended with Herald when I was coming up with my first iteration of ideal talents. I'm reversing that order this time, and the reason why is what I want to do to upgrade Holy Shock and Blade of Justice. I said in my Iteration 1 video that I was toying with the idea of merging those abilities into a single Solar Shock ability as part of my next Herald of the Sun iteration, and a few things made me decide to do so. Partly because I suddenly became aware that the trees were designed so every node would be filled in. Note that this is no longer as uber connected in Iteration 2 as it was in Iteration 1, and partly because I felt Radiant Bolt should be the choice for caster specs while there should also be a choice for instant specs. And that's just for Holy. For Retribution, Solar Shock enables you to play the way you've always played as Retribution, and with the revised Sundog talent that comes afterwards, also provide some extra healing for your party or raid and derive benefits from the Selfless Healer Keystone talent while doing so. I did talk about this in my Iteration 1 video, but I'll say it again. Blizzard's hero talents often either buff or introduce a single ability. Personally, I feel like that's putting all their eggs in one basket, and with the way hero talents are set up, it's creating force multipliers for failures. I mean, if the one ability that Blizzard is trying to shill with any given hero tree is clunky or unfun or useless or anything like that, it'll ruin the whole hero tree. And there's a force multiplier on any hero tree failing on any one spec, because any one spec has only 2 hero trees as options, so ruining one hero tree completely ruins player choice. My proposed solution for this is to make the trees much broader in their focus and theme. Herald of the Sun doesn't just buff Light of Dawn, it's intended to generally be healing for damage and damage for healing, which buffs a lot of different abilities in a lot of different ways, which spreads the risk out a great deal instead of putting all my eggs in one basket by focusing on one ability. Plus the fact that I'm adding new active abilities, albeit mostly in a way that replaces existing abilities, makes the tree all the more exciting for players. I really think these are major improvements over Blizzard's trees on multiple levels, but I'm getting off topic. I should discuss what else I've changed since the last iteration. Obviously, Solar Reflection is gone. Its talent went to Solar Shock, and its effect went into Sundog, which buffs either Radiant Bolt or Solar Shock, depending on which one you picked. For that matter, Focused Sunlight is gone too, but for Radiant Bolt, casting it on an enemy makes it bounce to a nearby ally and heal them. For Solar Shock, 2 nearby allies get healed when you cast it on an enemy. Damage for healing and healing for damage abound with this setup, as they should for a Retribution/Holy Tree. In fact, Radiant Bolt has got to be one of the best things Blizzard could possibly add to a caster Holy Paladin's repertoire. A ranged direct damage spell with no cooldown that can also consume Infusion of Light procs? Yes, please! Not to mention how a ranged damage spell with no cooldown would be exactly what a caster spec needs to thrive with a damage for healing hero tree. Fist of the Heavens is still upgrading and replacing Judgment, healing allies near the judge target, and it can be upgraded to be more single-target or more multi-target, making it helpful for Retribution paladins who still want to DPS. It can provide more instant healing with Soothing Sunlight or spread Judgment of Light debuffs over more targets with Sunstroke, making it also useful for Holy. I've removed the tweaks on its cooldown since I only made those to make Fist of the Heavens feel different from Judgment. Right now, I'm thinking that healing nearby allies and the Soothing Sunlight and Sunstroke talents make Fist of the Heavens different enough from Judgment. Solar Storm still buffs Light of Dawn, Shield of the Righteous, and Divine Storm. Good old no nuance conviction is right where it's always been, but Glorious Sunlight, which was a hodgepodge of miscellany that buffed an assortment of spells that I had not yet buffed at the time, which I'm adding Light of the Martyr to since I forgot it before, that has been moved to a pick one of 2 talent node with Anshe's Favor. For context, Anshe's Favor is meant to be a talent to help Retribution spec themselves to off-heal if they want to, and meant to help Holy off DPS if they want to. Of course, Anshe's Favor will be a must-have for a soloing Holy Paladin like myself, but I'm sure not complaining about that. If anything, that's got me more excited about Herald of the Sun. Holy Radiance remains the capstone, a new active ability based on Uther's version of Holy Radiance from Heroes of the Storm that sends out an orb of holy sunlight towards the target, healing allies and damaging enemies as it travels. Again, that version of Holy Radiance deserves to be in World of Warcraft, and I can think of no finer place to put it than as the capstone of a tree dedicated to healing for damage and damage for healing. But now that I've made these changes, there are two gaps in the talents that I need to fill in. What haven't I buffed yet? Well, both Holy and Retribution have a couple of cooldowns deep in their trees. Daybreak and Tearless Deliverance for Holy, and Execution Sentence, Wake of Ashes, and Final Reckoning for Retribution. None of these have any buffs that allow you to reduce their cooldown. What I'm thinking is a Sudden Sunrise talent that has a small chance to allow a random cooldown to be refreshed and not to affect its existing cooldown when cast. My goal in designing like that is to make it so that it doesn't interfere with lining up existing cooldown windows, which means I have to decide what happens if you get Sudden Sunrise while it's off cooldown. Maybe you can still cast the ability a second time, but only the first use's cooldown will be in effect. This is more an issue for Retribution than it is for Holy. Holy's gameplay is more reactive than Retribution's. Holy pops cooldowns when the raid takes damage, Retribution pops cooldowns either as soon as possible or when they line up with other cooldowns, or when boss mechanics make it the most advantageous to do so. Sudden Sunrise will be nice for Tier 4 since it's a beefy, sexy talent. I need something more boring but practical for the middle. For the time being, I think I'll add a straight-up versatility buffing talent, since I've not yet added anything that buffs versatility, and versatility is going to be very useful for any spec that's about damage for healing and healing for damage. I'll call it Seal of Wisdom, since that name really should come back at some point. I really think this is an improvement over my last iteration. It's got a little more that's boring but practical, a little more that's exciting, and it's a little more well thought out in terms of playstyle customization. If you want extra information about any of the abilities I didn't go in depth on in this video, my Iteration 1 video has huge amounts of detail, probably more than I should have had since the video got long. You can tell why I chose this screen name. I think the end result of a Retribution Paladin taking this Herald tree would be a Retribution Paladin that's a little more casterish and provides some passive healing while deriving selfless healer benefits from that healing, while also having some options to do more direct healing if they want to. And that sounds exactly like what a Retribution/Holy hybrid should be. And a Holy Paladin who takes Herald would be a Holy Paladin who's better at doing damage than a baseline Holy Paladin and can beef up their heals by doing damage, thus shaking up their playstyle with some powerful, flashy, and fun damage tools. Again, that's exactly what a Holy/Retribution Paladin should be. I would appreciate any feedback that you can give me about mistakes that I've made or improvements that I can make.